there's kind of any hope, or maybe is there like a kind of fundamental contradiction, you know, with the way that we live as human beings? Can we be sustainable, I wonder, or not?
So, from a climate point of view, we are literally screwed. So, we are literally screwed. Yeah. And what I mean by that is climate system has a particular inertia in it. So even if we say everybody becomes climate neutral by magic tomorrow, the amount of warming that is already locked in is a challenge, right? And I look at it because climate change is very unique because it has three very specific injustices built into this. One is from our generation and the generations before us to the young generation who's coming up, because we've messed up a climate system that has been stable throughout human civilizations, no longer there. It's also injustice from the north to the south, because bulk of the emissions came from the north, and people in the south have to pay for it more. And the third one is from us as humans to what we call more than human world. Now the problem is the fundamental behind your question is what does it mean to be human? Are you still human when there are no coral reefs around? Are you still human when there are no rainforests around? And we tend to isolate ourselves from rest of ecology, rest of nature, and make decisions from this single eye. And to me, this is the more fundamental problem in sustainability. So answer is, unless we change our own mind on what it means to be human, to understand how interrelated we are to all of existence, all of nature, we will never make a sufficient change even to hold the problem at a level somewhere, because we can't really go downstream on this. So no real positive answers for you from me.
I resonate with you from a climate screwing point of view. But look, in 1991, when the first Earth Summit was called by the Secretary General of the conference, Maurice Strong, he said the Earth Summit, first Earth Summit, was the last chance to save the Earth. 20 years later, we come to Rio Plus 20 in the same place. I was born in Rio. And I've been tracking down the summits and hunting down the summits and going to all the summits and creating people's platforms. We go and say we have had no political commitment to the Agenda 21 of saving. But then we come up with another agenda with hope. I don't think you can be in this business if you're simply pessimist. You must believe, and I think there's a load of belief. I don't think what Vidura said is no belief. I think the problem that Vidura and I have in unison is that the amount of crap that we have to face day in, day out, facing political and bureaucratic and corporate pulling back. And I think it's not about lack of hope. If lack of hope, 30 years in our lives, and people ask me, did you do this from kindergarten? Probably. But the problem is that another 30 years is the problem. Another 30 years of this is a huge mountain ahead. And that is a very hard one. And that is where people like Anoka's generation, we can't tell Anoka's generation not to lose hope. There's absolutely no right in it. But the fight today must be fought today and not leaving for tomorrow. And we are very hopeful.
So, just to add a little bit about hope you mentioned. I was privileged to be part of this presentation that Al Gore made in the US about global climate reality leadership, and I got to be part of that process. Couple of the slides he showed us, the targets they had for adoption of solar power and wind power by 2010, 2015, had been exceeded by 78 times the expected capacity. Not 78%. It has been exceeded by 78 times because the cost of solar panels have come down so drastically. In the US, it is not a sustainability issue to choose solar power. Solar power is now, and solar and wind power are the cheapest forms of energy in some states in the US. So it is now a business case saying it is the business case to select renewable energy. China has put in place some massive renewable energy. India has now for the first time got quotations for their public energy from renewable sources which are cheaper than coal. So there is a bit of hope. But of course, there is still the good fight to fight. The CEB here doesn't generally believe in renewable energy in Sri Lanka. So that issue is going to be fought, have to be fought. But I was, on the sidelines with Rathika, I was talking and he was saying the same thing about Anuka's generation. I think it is possibly this side of the panel, maybe not that side, we have to make sure we don't drop the ball before we give it over to them, because they are very committed. They will do it. They will change. They will believe. We have to not screw it up. We are trying hard. But there is a bit of hope. If we can bring those cost savings and things into our regions as well, there will be some likelihood of doing something.
So, quick response. It's not that well, my wife will say that I'm the biggest optimist around. I think there is an issue that we need to bear in mind because Earth is not a linear system. It's a complex system. So unlike in a linear system, we can stop things at the places we want. So we need to ask in a climate system, what are the fundamental tipping points that we need to avoid? So this is where it comes back to. Now, just because we can't save coral reefs, for example, does not mean that we should stop fighting for it. I think that's the difference. So for me, I have pessimism because I understand climate science and I understand the implications, what is going on. But that makes me more ferocious as a fighter to fight against coal power in Trincomalee, which I'm telling you now, better get ready, it's coming up again. That's the fight you have to. Even in the depth of grief, you need to find the courage to fight for this, right? So I do a 1-hour presentation generally, and I call it ecological grief, because we need to feel the grief of the forest. We need to feel the grief of the coral reefs. We need to feel the grief of all of these other animals. And from that grief, somehow find the energy to fight for that.
And the answer and the solution to what you ask is not to ask anybody else, like, are we doing it right? Do we have hopes, or is it going to work? To ask ourselves, is it going to work? Are we doing it right? That's how we change it.
Some great answers. We have time for one more question. Does anyone have?
We heard 7 people, and you said we are screwed. So I want to ask you, you're young enough. If we are indeed screwed, where is your optional home that you recommend?
Me?
And since you don't have one,
I don't say I have
I'm proposing,
hope.
no, just a minute. One more thing I want to say is, it'll be nice if we can stop inbreeding among the panel, because we heard them being as negative as possible, and hear a little more from the audience. So I'm going to propose something to you. Given the passion, the energy and all that you demonstrated, I'm a friend of Nimal's, I've known him for more than 25 years. Why don't each one of you come up with 3 solutions? Let's move from transforming this forum, which is a doomsayers forum, right? Give 3 examples. I mean, I think Sunela was speaking about some architectural work she had done. And you were saying the accountants in the world are all bad, little knowing that there is an International Integrated Reporting Council, and the world body of accountants have embraced the need to recognize the impact of environment and sustainability. So I think you guys need to get a bit of learning as well. So I'm going to ask you in particular, just next to the moderator or whatever it is, give me 3 solutions to overcome the problems you articulated.
So, one of the things my company does is we work with companies. I know we don't have a lot of time. I'll be happy to do that much later on. We work with companies to try and help them to become green. Sri Lanka has a very interesting problem to have. We have a lot of water in this country. We have a very good water table. So we don't have restrictions on the amount of water you can extract. So there is a restrictions on the pollution of the water, but extraction, most places you can take. In this context, it's very difficult to get companies to reduce the level of water that they are consuming. My company worked with one of the MAS factories to help them completely, what we call neutralize or offset the water that they are consuming. It took us 4 years of working with that factory because water is so cheap. There is no proper diagrams. There's no plumbing designs. Nobody knows where the leakages were. It took us 3 years to map that process out completely and reduce their water consumption by 45%. Then we said, okay, what do we do for the other 55% percent of the water that you are consuming in your day-to-day production? We quantified that amount and helped them create projects in the community that added water back into clean, drinking, usable water into that community itself. They had to create drinking wells. They had to clean entire lake that was polluted with salvinia so that you could add that back. So now there is fishing that is happening. There is agrarian services that is happening. People are using it for bathing. So we were able to quantify the amount of water that this company, Linear Aqua, was able to add back into the water table of that area. Over and above that, they went to Yala and refurbished some of the tanks and bunds to add back water into that ecosystem. They went to the communities and started adding back drinking water wells and giving communities back the drinking water. Their water bill a month must be a couple of 100,000, I'm guessing. They spent in the millions to give water back. Those are the solutions that we have. We help companies do that. We need companies to think like that and say, we don't think only on a financial scale. There is no business case to do this. There's a responsibility case. The world's first completely water neutral apparel factory was in Sri Lanka. My challenge to most industries is follow those examples. Between all these people here, Vidura's company does a lot for renewable energy, and you all have the biggest solar panel, right? The private sector solar panel? Something. Okay. As a group, they do a lot. So there are really good examples. We need more companies to follow them. That's it. Sorry, I won't take more of your time. Yeah.
Does any other panelist?
Sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, what we do, large-scale reforestation, renewable energy, knowledge building, because people have to understand the problems. And something simple that I do is to create specific habitats for pollinators, for bees, butterflies, grasshoppers, ladybugs. It's not that difficult to do in urban setting.
So I think we are all here because we are hopeful. We are environmentalists, we are activists because we are hopeful. But you cannot deny the fact that we are in deep trouble. As Vidura says, on many fronts we are screwed. Some of it we can't turn back. We've gone past the tipping point. Some of it we are fighting not to reach the tipping point. So it's not a case of you challenging us with solutions. We don't have brilliant solutions. If we did, we would have changed the world. We are just like everyone else here, but maybe we want to work a little harder, fight a little harder than everybody else. So maybe, can I throw that question back at you and ask you what you're doing?
Okay, yeah. I will.
that if everybody contributes incrementally to the solutions. Now, for example, there are banks that are giving low-cost financing to solar panels to villages. Right? So everyone, and there are lots of solutions we already have about it. I'm simply saying that it will be good for somebody to initiate a few strategic initiatives. Nobody is a
I appreciate the question, but I have a problem with soft sustainability which pacifies each of us in these comfortable rooms. Please, I'll give you 3 solutions then and there. Please tell your government when they write in their books of the principle of subsidiarity, and please put it into practice and devolve the power and make sure that the rights over natural resources must be governed by them. Number 1. Tell your government when they are, as corporates, when they are building a megapolis, it's an era, it's hold on.
I think we can.
No, your government, my government. It doesn't matter. You can interpret it the way. I'm a little detached as a Buddhist from government. So please tell them that in an era where an ecopolis is the game score for a future of hope, not to double GDP in the city and marginalize the poor. Tell your children not to go to Cambridge and keep on marginalizing the others by having an education system that completely screws, as Vidura says, a climatic mind that keep on screwing us generation after generation. So these are not the soft ones. Maybe the corporate does not like in a soft moment. But and when you measure, that is why I said the SDGs are measured by 240 indicators. So the moment that you try to put your money where your mouth is, you're going to get checkmate. And that is what has happened into governments across the world and corporates across the world. Thank you.
I think we'll close with. Sorry.
Could I?
Okay, so Ratika and then Vidura would like to say something very short, and then I think
just,
we'll close the flow. Yeah.
Just a different dimension to this whole thing. I just want to also tell you that, you know, if you look at the world and if you look at the top 100 nations and you look at the top 100 companies, the companies are using up a lot more resources. They're using up a lot more energy than the 100 nations probably. They probably are using a lot more human capital across the world. So I would think that the corporate sector has the capacity to really influence this entire process through better practice. Because at the end of the day, it's all about good governance, ethical standards. It's not only about climate, it's also to do with human rights, labor, anti-corruption, all of this, because all of this is sustainability, not just any one of them. And I feel that if it could start with corporates like it is happening now, they have come a long way if you look at what has happened over the years. But I think the journey is a long journey and it is happening. And we must applaud them for what they're doing today. Because the innovations that we see today, whether it be the cars, or whether we see Apple, or we see so many innovations that are coming in, they are in line with the sustainability agenda. So we need to applaud them. We need to understand that the journey is happening. So we just have to be patient. But of course, as Sunela just said, certain things we cannot turn back. So we have to accept it. Thank you.